All right, so hi guys. We are back with me and my friend Daquan
Hello.
because enough people commented on our last one that it did like surprisingly well. I'm actually excited about like how well that did because
It makes me feel good.
it makes me also feel good because it makes me think like, oh, I can do more of these things with my friends. Like we could bring our friend Morgan in for another topic or something.
Yeah.
Cuz I don't. Well, I mean, obviously, you listening right now are listening, but I don't think people realize that we just do this all the time, or we just talk about this stuff like all the time. So anyway, let me get my little basic shill out of the way. As you guys saw at the start of the video, thank you as always to my amazing Patreon patrons. We love you all so much because without you, this stuff would most definitely not be possible. And my social medias are in my Linktree link down below. Please like, comment, and subscribe, all that jazz. And Quan, you want to shut yourself out before we get into it so we can just have this done and out of the way to start?
Yeah. Hi, I'm Quan or Quantablos. I do the arts, but right now I'm in development of a spooky dating sim. So you can check out the links in the description. Thank you.
Yee. All right. So this is the Shira video because we both have words. So I want you to actually go first, Quan, because I talked a lot in the last one. So
Oh,
I
meow.
want you to start off with the show as a whole to you. And maybe some background because you actually grew up with the original show and I didn't.
I did.
I actually grew up on the like really old Thundercats, so She-Ra wasn't my thing. Yeah, no, because
Okay.
it was on. It was what was on TV. Okay, so I liked the old
Yeah.
Thundercats. But anyway,
No, okay. So my dad was really big into He-Man and, by adjacent, She-Ra. So I grew up with the original really bad designs. So, of course, I was super excited when they were like, hey, we're going to remake She-Ra. And I was like, rad. And then that was when the designs came out and everyone was like, oh, hell no. You remember that?
I remember that, and I will admit, so I also. So I didn't this is the weird complex I have with the show starting out. And if I made this like when the show ended originally, I don't think I would feel the same way. But after seeing what they did with the animation style to the He-Man show on Netflix, I felt a little cheated because they got the animation team behind the Castlevania anime. And
Yeah.
the reason why I say that is while I think the problem with She-Ra, the main problem, is that tonally it is a kid show. Tone-wise, it's a kid show. Narratively, it is not a kid
No.
show
Nope.
whatsoever.
Nope, 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 nope.
I also, as someone who actually like knows younger kids, like I have a friend who has like a 10 and 8-year old, and she doesn't like She-Ra at all because she liked the colors and she admitted, but she didn't like how deep the story was because she's 8 and 10.
Oof.
I'm not saying that all 8 and 10-year-olds are dumb because obviously that's not true, but I think when you're trying to have a tonally dark show, you need to do something where, like, Avatar was such a
Sure.
bend in what it was, but at the same time, Avatar was more of that Western anime influenced art style. So when the serious stuff got more serious, the tone shifted with it. For me, when we're watching it, like me and Cody, because Cody and I watched it separately. Well, I mean, we watched it together, but I watched like after everyone was talking about it. We were like, oh, this is a pretty good show. But then when the tone shifted, we both commented on how, like, the animation style kind of, like, pulled some of the seriousness out of it. And I'm not saying you can't have comedy in the show, because the comedy slaps in the show. Like, I loved the comedy in the She-Ra show,
Yee.
you know?
It
But
was funny.
I feel like with the story they wanted to tell, especially with how dark it gets at the end, because it gets really dark at the end.
It gets really dark at the end.
I feel like it would have done better if they had done it in the animation style of the He-Man and Castlevania show, because that was on the table. And with that
Oh,
being
it
said,
was?
apparently, yeah, it was on the
Oh.
table, but they decided to go against it because they wanted to go towards more like what animation is now currently.
Oh, they wanted a
And so,
Uwu Soft Princess show.
yeah. And the problem with that is because people always argue like, oh, the designs in the 80s show were but they were bad. Okay, the original
They were
designs were
bad.
bad. But the difference
The show
was
makes fun of the original
no,
designs. That's pretty
exactly.
good.
Which I love too. Yeah, I loved the self-awareness of it. But the thing was in the 80s, they were trying to sell toys And in this day and age, not a lot of shows sell toys like they used to. Like when I was a younger
Thank the
kid.
Lord.
It was like a big deal that your show sold toys. Like it's also a big thing with like Steven Universe, and why Steven Universe had its own issues was like Cartoon Network had a hard time selling toys of Steven Universe stuff. You know, well, there's other issues to it too. But a lot of animation companies, especially one like Netflix, they don't care about toy sales. So to me that also was like, okay, why did you go with this soft style when you wanted to tell such a serious story? I don't have an issue with the style as a whole. I think it's like it has its own character to it, and I did like the character designs. Oh, you do? Oh, okay. All right. Well, then you go off. So
I hate the freaking nose shading. Just the weird blob of color on everyone's face. It drives me nuts.
Don't you do that in your artwork, though? Don't you do that?
Blushy. I don't do a whole, like, under eye mask.
That's true. That's true. That's a nitpick I've heard a lot of people say, that they don't like the weird shading under the nose section.
That and, like, some just, like, really lazy things, like She-Ra's hair and the headband over it. But yeah, that's just a little nitpick.
Well, no, I mean, that's the point of this, is, like, we're gonna be nitpicking it and talking about it, because that's the whole thing, is... I just feel like, to me personally, with the fact they wanted to make it a darker show, I feel like the art style does hinder it, because, again, we're going back to the point where, like, the younger kids I know don't like the show, like, which is kind of what the intention was. And before people in the comments are like, well, when I was younger, I liked it when it came out, or I have a younger sibling that likes it. That is great, but you need to think of, especially in a networking sense, first and foremost, sadly, any animation company, any animated show is out there to make money first and foremost. Yep. The reason why a lot of good shows end up getting canceled is, surprise, surprise, it didn't make money. And so they're like, well, it didn't make money, so we can't pay the animators, so we're not going to pay the writers, so the show's not happening. It's kind of a sad, messed up fact of life, but that's why we have terrible shows like Teen Titans Go. The show makes money. The show makes money, so people like it. The show makes toys, people like it. It's a sad thing, but alright, God. Okay, so with that, because I feel like we can go on a longer tangent about just animation stuff as a whole, and that's not the point of this.
So much.
Oh, I know we could too, but I also know that would definitely be something I know Morgan would want to get in on.
Oh, a Slurpee!
So, yeah, if you want us to do that, again, comment down below, and like, just, you know, do multiple comments, not like spamming, but a lot of people were doing like upvoted comments instead of commenting, and while that does help, that doesn't help the bot enough, because YouTube is dumb, and I hate it here. So anyway, I think I need to, let's just get into Catra, because,
Freaking Catra.
So, where do you want to start with Catra?
I'm gonna start with, I'm personally probably going to get a lot of hate because I really don't like Catra.
I don't either. Well, yeah.
Is good for a villain. She is a fantastic villain. Douchebag, yes.
I would argue...
Good villain.
I would argue not so much. So here's why.
Oh, yeah?
I think she started off as a good villain, but then she became one note, and it kind of, like, ruined it for her.
You right.
Because I will agree, I did like her character arc. I liked how things were going. Up until, I don't remember what season it was, but when she literally tried to, like...
destroy the world?
Yeah, because I was like, I have to be careful what I say, because it's YouTube. So, when she, like... does the thing where, like, the universe is imploding in itself, and she's, like, corrupting herself to bring Adora with her to, like, literally end each other's lives.
That's where they lost me.
That's where they lost me too, because I thought after that, she would at least, like, okay, I have literally been to ground zero because I tried to destroy the universe and corrupt myself. I thought because of how fans treated the show, because Cody and I watched it later, I was like, okay, so for the other seasons after that one, because I know that wasn't the end. That was not the end, because I remember the last season had to do with the clones and stuff, right? Yeah. So that was at least 2 or 3 seasons before the series was even done. So I thought, okay, we're gonna get her to have, like, a big character growth moment throughout the next couple seasons, going from I'm literally gonna nuke the entirety of the universe
Not even just the planet.
That's what I mean. It was the universe, right? Yeah, she was gonna nuke it, and like again, we had that weird glitching effect with her, where it was like she was being corrupted.
It was pretty rad effect. I'm not gonna lie.
It was really cool. But I thought this is your ground zero moment. This is your no, and it didn't, and it made like less sense to me after that when she kept being like he evil after that instead
it was
of
stupid.
Especially when it seemed like every other character had, like, issues from that event, if I remember correctly.
Especially Scorpia, baby.
Yeah. I think the other thing that goes into it is just how the writers felt that everybody needed a love interest at the end, because it like actually bothers me because I felt like Adora deserved so much better. Like,
bro, she could have been with Big Buff Lady.
Yeah.
Come on. No, but I'm personally a fan of the OT3. They would have been so cute as a throuple.
Which OT3?
Adora, Bo, and Glimmer.
See, I'm not a fan of that. I can see where you're coming from.
It's not what I personally would have picked, but it would have been better than Catradora.
Oh no, you're right. With that being the comparison, because the reason for the Catradora one, it just seemed like
bad.
Because they tried doing the like, oh, we're childhood friends, we grew up through all this stuff, and Cody and I got sister vibes for like so much of the show. Was like, okay, it's sister vibes, and then I originally interpreted it as like, okay, Catra's got like an obsession love over Adora. It's not that she's like actually in love with her, it's the obsession. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's kind of like Homer and Madoka. I do not ship them, but the obsession is definitely there.
Okay, well, that's a bad comparison for me because I never finished Madoka Magica. So
I'll help someone.
But no, what I'm trying to say is like that's how I always felt of it as. And then when they ended up getting together, it seemed so forced because it seemed more like Adora had her own issues of the past, and instead of like letting go and getting over it and moving on, it just seemed like, nope, I'm gonna stick to this person that gave me so much trauma and so much abuse. Before anybody argues, like, well, she was sorry. Okay, so I have a problem with that because Catra only became sorry after she was like violently abused, brainwashed, and beaten down. I don't feel like was that karma? Yes, but I don't feel like that's the moment where it's like, well, I'm sorry now because now I realize how bad I treated everybody. Because it happened to me. Because it happened.
Redemption arc I've ever seen.
Because it happened to me now, and then Adora being like, "Oh, okay, I love you," and I'm like, "Wait, what?"
I've always loved you, Michi.
I mean, you know, Quan, me too, but like, that's not. It seemed so forced. Like, it seems so out there.
I understand the trauma bonding because Shadow Weaver, was not a great mom.
Oh, well, no, but she never tried to be a great mom from what I got.
No, she didn't. Like, she just wanted them to be powerful and, like, understandable. I love Shadow Weaver, even though she's terrible.
She's terrible, but I did like her sacrifice. I felt like her sacrifice...
It was very justified, and it was very slurpy.
I felt like that was a good part, because the show has good parts to it.
It does. That was one of them.
It's also like, God, I really liked Scorpia's awkwardness, because Scorpia is one of my favorite characters. And I think they got Scorpia's awkwardness really well, and showing up someone who, from what I understand, because it's been a while since I've watched the show, forgive me, I was not going to rewatch it for this, because I didn't want to waste the time.
I remember it all.
If I remember correctly, didn't Scorpia, like, grow up in the war? Because, like, her family, like, gave the crystal over, right?
Her family was like, here you go, Hordak, you can just have our gem of power, or whatever they're called.
Yeah, so, like, this is literally, like...
So she grew up in the Horde, too.
Yeah, so she grew up in the Horde, so it made more sense that this is normal for her, like it was for Adora and Catra, you know, to be like, okay, this is normal, and, like, this is just what things do. And, again, I feel like her obsession and romance option with Catra made more sense because it's implied that Scorpia didn't have friends.
Yeah.
Because, like, again, maybe it was thing, but when I was younger, I used to get crushes on my friends all the time because I didn't have friends a lot, too. And when Catra was being mean and hurtful to her, Scorpia was like, wow, I'm gonna leave. And she did. And it was good for her. It was,
I was so proud of her.
no, I was too, because it was like, wow, there's an action for your consequence, you know? But, like, again, for Catra's character, it seemed like, okay, everybody leaves her, and then she gets abused and beaten up, and then everyone's like, well, now we gotta save Catra, even though, you know, she's a terrible person. But it's okay. It's okay if terrible people are terrible. Once they're abused, you have to be the better person, because that's the message I got, and I think that's a terrible message to tell people. Am I crazy for getting that message? Because that's what it seemed like to me, was that it's like, okay, forgive the people who abused you once they've been abused, is kind of the message that I got from the show. Because it was like, Catra was this terrible person who didn't apologize, again, until she was beaten down and broken, and then was like, wow, I f***ed up. And then everyone's like, well, I know Catra's this terrible person, but you know, no one deserves to be brainwashed and beaten down. And it's like, you're right, but that doesn't mean you should just forgive her. Like,
no, her redemption arc was not powerful enough for me to forgive her at all.
That's what I'm like. Am I crazy for thinking that was the message? Was like, okay, well, karma's a bitch, and when karma hits people that are mean to you, you need to forgive them. That's the message I took from the show, and I think it's a bad message, unless I'm crazy.
Bro, I didn't even get a message. I just got, yeah, we wanted her to be redeemed, so like she is.
But that's just it. I felt like they wanted her to be redeemed so she could be with Adora, but even then, their ship just seemed so forced. Like,
it was really forced.
But
I'm sorry. I know people
know,
wanted it the whole time.
But you know,
and like enemies to friends, or friends to enemies to lovers, like, yeah, that's real slorpy, but not here.
Well, here's the problem. I think the show has a problem with a lot of forced relationships, like another one.
The worst one, actually.
That's what I was saying.
In my opinion.
Like Catradora is like toxic, but this next ship to both of us just seemed like, well, we need to pair everybody up, and who is left? Like, who is like free? That's what it seemed like to me. But would you like to go into the next one, the next ship?
Yeah. They did my sweet baby Scorpia dirty. It took them one episode to be like, yeah, you're with Perfuma now. First of all, I hate Perfume. I just think she's boring. But like, just one episode and they were like, yeah, they're in love. And I'm like, no! Stop it!
Well, I think the worst part is I didn't even realize it was a ship, and neither did Cody until afterwards when people talked about it. I'm like, wait, they're not just really good friends? I took it as friends.
I thought they were friends.
The way they were setting it up.
Perfume is sweet. It makes sense that she's trying to include Scorpia in like princess things. Yeah. But they were like, no, they are a ship, and look, this is their fan child. And I'm like, excuse me?
Yeah.
Have you seen it? Have you seen the fan child?
Mm-hmm. I've seen good. But it's a fan child. It's not like confirmed.
No, it's a fan child from the creators.
Really?
Yeah, just like the Catradora one, Skippy, whatever its name is.
Oh God, oh that bothers me. But I think another problem with the show, before we get more into ships, because I know our next note is like ships that don't suck, but is the show in my mind has a terrible knack of foreshadowing. Now, by that, what I mean is like the big plot points foreshadowing, that one, they're fine. You can't really mess that up because it's in the show. But there's stuff that we just never get to see that they bring up and they never talk about, and it bothers the crap out of me. Like, they never brought up, from what I remember, why Scorpia didn't know she had princess powers. Like, I know they're like, oh yeah, well you just don't resonate with your crystal. And I'm like, okay, but like, your parents gave the crystal up, so that means you're like a first generation without powers? So that means your parents had to have had powers, right? Or did they not have power? Like, it was one of those things, they just kind of dropped it, and like, we're just like, well, she just didn't resonate with her crystal enough. I'm like, but with the lore of the world, that doesn't make sense to me.
It
Like,
doesn't.
like they talk about how all princesses and royalty have magic. It's kind of like the thing of why they're princesses and royalty and stuff. So
And
that
like, yeah,
like
they're like non-elemental, which like
yeah,
Entrapta is non-elemental, so like I get it, but like,
but Entrapta has her hair, so like she had
yeah.
magic. That's what I'm like getting at here is there's stuff like that, you know. Or another example I can think of is now I love Bo's parents, so I'm not knocking his parents. I love his parents. We love some good gay man love man relationship rep where both of them talk and have personalities. Like that's
Oh, they were so
really rare. They're
sweet.
really sweet. My issue was you can't drop, well, Bo, you have 13 brothers, and we never meet a single other brother throughout the entirety of the show.
Cries.
Well, no, think about it. Like, that was something that bothered the heck out of me, was I'm like, wait a minute.
Well, like there was like no indication. If you missed that line, like that was it.
Yeah, but you can't have a line like that and then have, like, full intergalactic clone war where it's, like, enveloping the planet and then not have Bo be like, well, I need to check on my 13 brothers or my dads. Like,
Oh, but you know, Double Trouble has like 15 different whatever the hell's alter personality things going
yeah,
on.
yeah. But
We
that's
have
something
those.
but that's something that bothered me with the foreshadowing in the show. Is like you tell us stuff like that, but they're just done as like throwaway lines when they're pretty important lines. Like again, it didn't make sense to me with Bo and the brothers or with Scorpia and the magic and another one I would think of.
Oh, I wanted more shit about freaking Micah.
Yeah.
What was he doing there the whole time?
Mm-hmm.
Like, bro.
I think another thing too is just like how I don't remember if they brought this up in the show or not, but like because from what I remember, the planet's a weapon, right? Like that's the whole thing is like the planet was a weapon originally.
Yeah, it was a first one weapon.
Yeah,
They like
that's what I thought. Yeah,
was it a
so
bomb? Did they put a bomb in it? I don't even
I
remember.
think it was something like that. But my problem with that is how does the planet as a weapon turn into everyone on this planet has magic and magic is just on this planet? Did they ever explain that?
No,
Yeah.
especially I want to know how lesbians can have babies. Tell me.
Well, that's what I'm saying is I always assumed they just magicked up babies because again, like majority of the people on the planet are women, which is fine. I don't have an issue with that. But
No.
I don't like that you're giving us you're giving us answers to some things and then ignoring answers to others. And the problem is they are valid questions because obviously not everything needs to be explained. But a simple thing to be explained would be, hey, yeah, how do the people get magic from the crystals that grow on this planet weapon? Because they're like seem to be born with this magic. It doesn't seem to be like, is it supposed to be like they're gonna science explain it and be like, oh, well, it's radiation and they're just radioactive? Like that doesn't make sense to me
Oof.
either.
Like especially with like Glimmer, she was like her entire existence was attached to that freaking thing.
Yeah.
And then Scorpia's just over here chilling.
Well, that's another thing. Is like, isn't it also implied, if I remember correctly, that before her mom, yeetuses into the other dimension?
Which is also stupid.
Yeah, but wasn't that supposed to be a thing where it was like she was like an eternal being, like she didn't age, right?
Ah,
Wasn't that a
yeah.
thing? Yeah. So that confused me because I'm like, if you're like this eternal ageless being, how did you not know about the original She-Ra? Because to her it was still a myth, right?
Yeah.
Remember? And then it's like, oh, She-Ra's real and all this stuff. And I'm like, wait a minute. Are there other eternal, ageless, like mythical magic people on this planet? Or is it just you? Because again, that leads to more questions.
And no one got any explanations about Raz either.
Raz? Which one's Raz?
The old lady with all the She-Ra
right,
lore.
right. Yeah, who just doesn't die and she's got implied Alzheimer's. Like, which I will admit, I thought that was like really, I hate saying sweet, but it was relatable, like a like visual representation of it.
I loved Raz.
I loved her too, you're right. But also, again, it explains where it's like, Because in the flashbacks, even with her memory skips, it's implied that she was always that age, too. So I'm like, wait, what?
Baby.
But yeah, like, crap. Okay, so let's just get into the ships that don't suck now, because that's all I had to say was a big issue, was the show drops a bunch of stuff, and then they do a problem with the explainies, but then when they do the explainies now make you have more questions instead of answers. Like, again, wait, if this whole planet's a weapon, and it's a science weapon, how do people just have magic?
Technology magic. Like, even, like, with Catra, like, you know, her, like, glitch stuff, like, it proves that, like, are they magic or are they science? Like, is it technology or is it magic?
Yeah. Also, how did all of these creatures get on the planet in the first place? Like, did they ever explain that, or were they just there on the planet?
They never explained anything.
Because that's something else I'm confused by, because clearly space travel doesn't exist until later on in the show when they discover a spaceship. So that means me, it's one of those things where, again, it just leads me to more questions instead of giving me answers.
Yeah, I have a lot of questions.
So, the next thing, and the problem is, again, it goes back to, like, well, it's supposed to be a kid's show. You're right! So why'd they throw this in there? Why did they make it so complicated and so deep if at a core it is supposed to be a kid's show?
Like, they can say it's supposed to be a kid's show all they want, but we all know the intended audience, and it hit us, and we got smangry.
Yeah. So, now let's go into the ships that don't suck in the show, because, again, the whole point of the show is pretty much friendship and romance, sadly.
Princesses of Power. Like, as an ace, I would have enjoyed some good, tasty friendship, but, you know, we can't have that.
That was my issue. I really would have rather had, like, again, Scorpia not be with anybody. Just have friends.
No, she needs time to heal. Poor baby.
Like, because she also is implied that she's got self-confidence issues, too, so I would have liked her friends to, like, boost up her confidence, and then maybe later on she ended up finding somebody. Maybe.
Later, after the show.
But that's just it, too, is I was like, why does everybody need to get paired up at the end of it? Because to me, it's a lot like, it's like Harry Potter logic. Like, I love Harry Potter, the series, not J.K. Rowling. But, yeah, I know. Well, you have to, it's sad, but you have to say that nowadays because of everything that's happened. But, like, even now, I remember being like, okay, why did everybody have to get paired up at the end of Hogwarts? Like, exactly, like, everybody got paired off and had kids, which doesn't happen in real life, especially out of high school. Even if stuff happened to you, that doesn't usually
even if you trauma bond, that is no excuse for forcing relationships.
Because, like, another thing on the trauma bonding, I really liked how they represented, like, PTSD and flashbacks of, like, the trauma they all went through as, like, kids and stuff and everything. I think really that was done really well. Again, but they do the thing where, which is one of my biggest pet peeves, where they always seem to have, like, convenient PTSD. It's like, okay, here's a lull. How are we gonna fill in time with the lull? Convenient PTSD.
Well, yeah, the whole second part of Catra's quote-unquote redemption arc was just, I have PTSD now from my brainwashing. Like, bro, I hated that whole section of the show.
Yeah, so, but we never went to the ships that don't suck. We went on tangents again.
Oh boy, I can talk about the ships that don't suck. I am entrapped at garbage.
I think that's a good example, though, of, again, a ship done right, where it's like you see them, like,
so good.
You see them bond and become friends, and then, like, genuinely care about each other.
Like, they started hinting it pretty early on, And I was like, okay, I see where y'all are going. They did that ship so much respect.
Mm-hmm.
Like, even down to, like, the freaking crystal that she gives him when she, like, remakes him. Like, when she fixes him.
Yeah, when she
and
helps
it
him.
says love. And, oh.
I also liked how they have really good, like, disability and autism rep in the show. Like,
Yes.
well, a good example that I liked is, again, with Hordak, is it's not even subtle. The guy's got a chronic disease that's slowly killing him. What I like, though, is they don't do the kid show or the fantasy ooh-woo of you're healed now, you're all better. No, it was like, oh, we found a way to help you, like, live and exist and have a life, but you still have the thing.
They still have the thing.
Because, well, that's the thing with, like, a lot of shows and media and movies where, like,
Yeah, they're like, boop, you better now.
well, I see that a lot too, where it's like where you see depression like shown in a lot of media and movies, and the like whole thing. If you live with chronic depression, like me and my co-host
Fuck.
here, and also both diagnosed, so you know we're not just saying that to say it.
Yeah.
It's not great.
You
Is
take the meds, fam.
oh yeah, no, take your meds, drink some water, take a break, do some briefs. But a lot of the stuff in like story arcs with depression is always, well, they're not sad anymore. They got better. And
I wish.
it always sucks because when you have those like stories and messages in stuff, especially in kids media, when it creeps back up on you because it can at any time, suddenly you feel like, well, wait, what? Why is this happening? I'm happy right now. Like, what's wrong? Like, this shouldn't be happening, you know? And that's why I also, same thing with like disability, you know, representation and autistic representation. Sadly, a lot of shows and media and books are like, they just got better. Oh, you're disabled? Here's a way to fix your disability. Oh, you have autism? Here's friends to teach you how to mask instead of like, you know, live with it. And that was something I really liked about this show, was they did it in a very good way. Because the show has really good merits and messages. Again, I just feel like they should have been aiming for a higher audience, because clearly this is what they were aiming for instead of what they were, you know, either given or greenlit to.
Like, bro, like literally the best line in the entire freaking show is just imperfection is perfect. And I'm like, it's beautiful. And I'm like, yeah, between the autistic and the disabled character, imperfection is beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
It is beautiful. I love them so much. They're such a good couple. And though I don't like not Hordak, I didn't understand what was supposed to happen there.
With not Hordak? Oh wait, you mean
Yeah.
you mean the clone that
Yeah.
they kind of freed? I think that was supposed to be a thing where, again, it was like, haha, this is a fun. That's an example of me being like, oh, it's a kid's show, we need something funny. That's
He
like,
was funny. I liked him.
well, no, he was funny, but that's what I mean. Plot wise, it was like, was he literally here to be like a tone shifter? Because that's what it felt like. It felt like, oh, we're getting too dark now. We need some hoo hee ha's. Am I wrong to think that? Because that's what it felt like.
No,
when Cody and I
that's
watched it.
definitely what he was.
It was.
And it worked. He was funny.
It did work, but then again, it comes back down to, so now you just have this guy, like...
Yeah, like where does he, and like I have a really hard time telling the difference between actual Hordak and not Hordak.
Well, it doesn't help that when
kids do.
Well, it doesn't help when the whole thing was when he got like when Hordak got like reprogrammed, he looked like all the other ones. So that definitely
that's why I'm like, Holmes? What?
But God, another show, one of the representations I really did like of like a good married couple was they were the lesbians that were entrapped, not entrapta. It wasn't entrapta.
Natasha.
It was Natasha. Yeah, we really liked them.
They were so sweet.
They were really, really good. They also, again, I felt like they showed a married couple in a very like good way, because that was another thing with the show, is I think they showed a lot of like couples that were already together. You could tell they were in love, but they weren't in love in the like, this is mommy and this
You're
is daddy
so
way.
gay. I'm man. She
Well, no.
woman.
What I mean is like there are a lot of like older kid shows and stuff
Oh
and
no, I
movies
know.
when I grew up where like okay, here is dad and here is mom. This is it. This is dad and this is mom.
No,
Like
they both had a very neutral role in their relationship.
yeah.
And they were really sweet and like all their little like my dearest and like that one scene where they're fighting and they're like, haha, I'm killing more bad guys than you.
Yeah,
Like
like
that was cute.
it was a relationship or the same thing with Glimmer with her dad and her mom, you know, the whole like their whole
Yeah.
relationship and everything.
Even though we
And
didn't get to see a lot.
I did like I liked Bo and Glimmer eventually
Glimmer.
ending up together, but I
Eventually.
felt like theirs was a good example of the slow burn. Like I was happy with how things were progressing with theirs. But
Yeah.
that's also the problem here is I think that's why for me Adora and Catra stood out like such a sore thumb. Same with Scorpia and in Perfuma was we had
Right.
so many good representations of relationships or funny ones in like Mermitstia. I can never say her name.
Mermista and
Yeah,
Seahawk. I
yeah,
loved
with them
them.
being hilarious, which
They were so good. They were just, I hate you. I love you too.
exactly, and I loved that kind of funny relationship because she loved him too, even though it was that whole issue. And
Even though she was like, ugh, whatever.
but I think that's the problem with Scorpia and Perfuma and Catra and Adora is it just seemed like well everyone else has a person and we don't want to do because it also felt like we don't want to do what Voltron did where we just give you a random bitch at the end of the show.
Oof.
So who can we give? Okay, well Catra and Adora they've been set up the entire show to be ro- romantically involved, which again didn't
I
like it.
didn't
I
get
was
that.
getting sister vibes, and personally, I
Bro, like,
well I've never liked when characters have brother sister vibes and then
and
they're
then they grow
like
up and
and they
like each
grow up
other.
and like they're together and they have
Yeah.
kids cuz to
Like
me
we have siblings. We
yeah
know what that would be like and it's like ugh.
yeah and like cuz a lot of people use the like well what you don't like the best friends growing up together. No, I love that trope,
I
but there's
do. I
still a
love it.
separation there. They weren't living together and around each other 24/7 and doing everything together every part of every day cuz that's when it gets into like familial bonds territory.
Plus they really tried to like towards the end of the show in the flashbacks, they really tried to push the no, they were always in love and I'm like, bro, they were children.
Yeah, they were kids. They were little kids. They were
They
little
were
kids
babies.
being abused the entire time because that's what they were.
They were
Also,
sisters.
it bothers me because Adora and Catra, out of their whole platoon, seem to be the only one that were like those that close with each other, which is why I got the sisterly vibes from them. But the rest of their like little squad, they were all just friends with, you know,
Okay, but
like
hold on.
yeah,
You know the little nerd, Kyle? I think his
yeah.
name is Kyle.
I think it was Kyle.
He
Yeah.
yeah, he ends up with a Helio.
What
Yeah,
he does?
I'm pretty sure. Hold on, let me
Yeah,
see.
can you look that up? Cause I need to know if that's true or
Yeah,
not.
Helio's his boyfriend!
You know what? Good for them.
And he adopts Imp! Oh my gosh, it says adopted son!
Well, like, see, that's the thing though, is that's what also bothered me was they're trying to imply this thing, and then that's the reason for the like love is they're like, oh yeah, Adora didn't care about anybody else in the squad. She only cared about Catra, and I'm like, well, that's kind of fucked on Adora then. Like,
Yeah, but like they didn't even show it like that. Like Adora kind of looked out for the whole team. That's
yeah,
how she became captain.
yeah, and Catra was selfish and conniving,
Yeah.
which is
The
why she didn't
flashbacks,
get promoted.
it's all in the flashbacks.
And I just, to me, it bugs me because it's like, I feel like so many people just latch onto LGBT rep without, like, looking into it. Because to me,
Yes.
I put on the same vibes, and people might think this is gross, but it's literally how I see it, so I'm sorry if I'm wrong. To me, it's the same shit like when I see people who are, like, Loki and Thor shippers.
But thumbs down.
You know what I'm talking about, though, right?
I do.
Like, it just seems like really uncomfortable. Or, again, the people who I see where this is actual incest, the people who, like, really, really like Anna and Elsa together.
No, hate
Like,
it.
a lot of people are like, yeah, they're like, and it really disturbs me. Like, normally I'm not that person to be like, okay, you know what, you have your ships, you be in your own lane. I get uncomfortable with those ships a lot, and to me, that's exactly how I feel on the same vein as Catra and Adora, because it just seemed like, you grew up together and you're both lesbians, so we're just gonna put you together. And I'm like, that doesn't seem...
It doesn't seem right at all.
Yeah. Like, I'm not saying Catra didn't deserve to get a redemption arc. I think she should have. But I don't think it should have ended up where they kissed each other in a thing. I think it should have been more like, again, a familial... Because that's something else that bothers me, is I'm so sick to death of shows and movies and books where there has to be a love interest. We're going back to that. Why couldn't it just be, we grew up together, I love you like a sister, and I'm not gonna let you die here? Like,
again, as the big ace, please just let us have friends.
I
just want a good platonic friendship just once in my life.
I also don't want the friendship to be like, the reason for the friendship is because one of them isn't attracted to the other one. By that I mean like, oh, we're friends because you're a lesbian and I'm straight, so we could never, be together. That kind of thing. Because I see that a lot too, where it's like, yes, we're gonna just be friends because we obviously can't be together, which also bugs me a lot. Because I'm like, you can be friends with, like, I'm friends with a lot of bisexual friends, lesbian friends, and gay friends. Our sexualities are not why I'm not attracted to them.
Michi, I know you're in love with me, but it can never be.
Listen, I know we held hands to those bigots at San Japan like 2 years ago, but...
that was so funny.
That was hilarious. If it wasn't for you hearing them, I don't think I wouldn't even noticed. I was just like...
Oh, listen, I'm all about mischief.
But that's my issue, is like, I just want decent rep, because that's, I think, the basis of here is, I want just decent rep. I don't want, like, well, it's lesbian, so it's A-okay.
Like, yeah, I appreciate the representation. I appreciate the lesbians. I appreciate the straights and the gays and the non-binaries. But I just want one solid platonic relationship that is untainted. Like, please.
Also, now that I think about it, I don't like that the only non-binary person in the entirety of the show doesn't end up with somebody. I just realized that.
I would have honestly almost preferred Catra and Double Trouble.
That would have made more sense. They at least had chemistry and a relationship together.
Shits.
Yeah, that would have made, again, it would have made more sense. And Double Trouble was a true neutral character to me. Like, I talked about that a little earlier before we started recording, was like, a lot of people were like, wow, Double Trouble was evil all along. I'm like, Double Trouble was after Double Trouble. They were always talked about how they were neutral.
Yeah. Like, and especially, like, when Double Trouble was, like, helping Catra, but, like, still, like, doing their own thing. Just, like, the banter between them was so good. And I'm like, bruh, enemies to lovers right there. Now that would be okay. But just freaking Catradora's bad. Bad.
So here's a dumb question. Did Adora have a romance interest in the old show?
Yeah, Bo.
Ew.
Or Seahawk. It was either Bo or Seahawk.
I think it was really?
Bo. Yeah.
Oh, that sucks. Never mind. I shouldn't have even asked that question because I didn't watch the original show, so ew, worse.
Hold on, let me see. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, it was Seahawk.
Ew.
Oh my gosh, she's so ugly in the original.
Yeah, I've seen what Seahawk looks like, so that's why I'm like, ew.
Forgot. Oh.
Also,
so
I think another thing, I guess that's a plus to the show that did irritate me that other people brought up as a nitpick, because this to me was a real nitpick over, like, actual things we brought up, was I've seen people who were like, okay, but like, why are the magic users fat? And I'm like,
Excuse me.
no, that was a big thing. There were a lot of people that they didn't like how like thick a lot of the characters were.
You mean realistic?
Yeah. Because I even saw someone bring up like a fact of like, oh yeah, the reason why a lot of the magic users are probably bigger people, and obviously, and there weren't. It wasn't like to be a magic user you were fat. It was like just a lot of them were usually bigger or a little thicker. Was yeah, that does make sense. If you're doing magic, you're not doing as much like physical labor as other people are. But it also
Yeah.
didn't show them like I hate again in media when there's a fat person and their fatness is a character trait. Like they were just bigger characters. That was just how they were.
Yeah.
Because how many movies have you seen where there's a bigger plus size character where there's always a stare scene or an out of
Ooh,
breath scene?
don't hurt me like this.
Am I wrong? Am I wrong?
Don't hurt me like
Or
this.
there's like a thing where they're talking about like their clothes don't fit anymore or something like that. Like it's a butt of a joke in almost
Yeah.
every time instead of a character just existing even though they're a plus size person. Like that was something I liked in the show was I did like the different body types and I liked
love the different body types.
I like the different body types. I like the different races and ethnicities. I did like the different romances and I liked the options here. But again, when you have such good relationships and great rep, when you have the main ones kind of suck, I'm sitting here like, okay, but like why? Like it goes back to one of those in the writing room where it's like, did that need to be there? Or were you doing
No.
it to pander to people? Because there are people out there who just support the crap out of it.
Well, like I know, like with Shira, especially the creator is like very involved. Like, so a lot of it is like
Oops.
their
My Tylenol!
like preference. So I think that's why Catra happened because I know the creator is a big Catra shipper.
That's fine though, but like, again, there's good writing in the show. Why couldn't you write it in a decent way to where I think that's just the biggest thing for me was Catra didn't get a redemption arc. She was abused and then
You
rescued.
gotta, oh no, feel bad for me, and then was rescued, and then just the I've always loved you. Like,
That's what got me.
what?
Yeah, it was like,
Where
wait,
did
what?
that come from? You were children,
Yeah,
and then you weren't.
yeah, you were
Wait,
children,
what?
and then like I also think again for me the breaking point was when Catra tried to nuke the universe because before that it was always like silly banter and messing with things and they'd fight each other, but it wasn't that serious. Then the nuking of the universe thing happened.
Oh, it got so intense so fast. Like at first it was just like, dude, you freaking left me. I'm gonna kick your butt.
Yeah,
And then it was just like, I hate you so much. I'm going to nuke the entire universe.
yeah, I'm going to kill myself and bring you with me is what it came down to, and I was like, how do you come back from that?
You don't.
And then, well, I think you could, but instead of doing it, they did. Well,
Not that fast.
we're just gonna abuse her, and then you have people who justify it like, well, karma is a bitch, isn't it? And I'm like, okay, but karma hitting somebody doesn't instantly mean that like you should forgive them now. That's karma for their own actions.
Yeah.
Like, again,
If anyone deserved instant forgiveness, it was Scorpia.
oh, exactly. Again, and that's also because she was raised in it, but she also attempted to try to help and grow from it.
Plus, like, especially with like Shadow Weaver, they did it really good. They didn't try to redeem her, even with her sacrifice. They didn't try to redeem her. They were like, oh no, she was a terrible mother figure.
Yeah.
But she still cared.
Yeah.
Like she cared deep down in there somewhere,
I
and
think
that's what made her sacrifice
yeah, and that's
meaningful.
why that's why I think Shadow Weaver was a good example of somebody can love you but not be good for you. That's what I think
Yep.
like was what the example there was cuz there are a lot of people out there who do genuinely love people but they are terrible parents, they're terrible friends. And
I
just
love Shadow Weaver.
because they love that person doesn't suddenly justify all the terrible things they're doing to people. You know?
Mm-mm.
But
I love her though. Oh my gosh. This show is like rough because there are some things I really like, and then there are a lot of things I really hate.
Well, again, it's to me it's the tonal shift of everything where it's like, okay, now it to me it again, it screams where like because Avatar was such a quintessential show and they took such a leap with that show. I think the difference is one, Avatar didn't pick a bouncy cartoony style.
Yeah.
Like the first season granted is a lot more hokey and funny than the last season, but at the end of the first season there's like a guy that dies, they summon a freaking fish god, and a princess, sacrifices her life to go be the moon. Like it gets really dark at the end of the first season, you know what I mean? And like
But even then, they poke fun at it because when Sokka's like, "Yeah, my first girlfriend turned to the moon," and Zuko's like, "That's rough, buddy."
exactly, they poke fun at it, but again, we have the like serious tonal shifts throughout the series, or again, when Aang finds the skeleton of his dad, like you can do it where you have the tonal moments, but then like again, in the last season there aren't as many comedic moments because it was like, all right, we need to go finish and stop this war. You know what I mean? Like they knew what they were having. Yes, there were a couple of funny episodes and a couple of hoo hoo hee ha moments, but like again, it was serious at the end. And I feel like the problem is a lot of people want to do that, but then they're like, no, we need funny. Oh no, we need romance. Oh no,
Oof.
we need this. And it's like, okay, but do you though? Like you're trying to tell a darker story here. Just stick with it. That's my thing to it. That's I guess what my final thoughts are. How about you? Do you agree or disagree or
No, I agree. Yeah, they should have definitely picked one. As much as I enjoy the representation of not just LGBTQ but disabilities and like mental health, they should have picked one for kids or not for kids.
yeah.
I think it would have been really slurpy to have the Castlevania He-Man animation.
Mhm.
Cuz I do like the style. It doesn't fit.
That's my issue with it is the style is fine on its own if they were going to do a kid show. Like cuz that's the thing. It's a lot like to me it's like Steven Universe, and I did like Steven Universe, but a lot of people brought up how like, oh yeah, Steven just, forgave dictators because it's a kid show. Oh
Yeah.
yeah, we're gonna talk about how like trauma's affecting Steven and doing all this stuff and how he's turning into a monster. How are we gonna fix that? We're gonna give him a hug.
We're gonna give him a hug.
Like, which, granted, there is deeper meanings to it in there, but that's what I'm talking about. It's like they don't let stuff settle, is the problem with a lot of that. And I think it's because,
Yeah.
again, there are these writers that want to have deeper, darker shows, but they're going for kid shows. And before people, jumped on my throat and be like, well, where are they supposed to get it made? And I'm like, no, I get that. I get that it's a hard sell, and I'm not dumb. If you want a deeper adult show, especially an animation show, it's gonna take time. It's gonna take effort. It's gonna take a studio willing to take the gamble on it. But I also don't think that you should put these really dark themes into kids shows. But with that being said, I don't think you should dumb down kids shows. Like, we don't need like a slice of life like a Clarence show, or a stupid show like Uncle Grandpa where it's just, the whole
Oof.
perk is random. I'm just saying if you want to go with, I don't know, brainwashing genocide of planets, I don't think a show intended for 8 to 10-year-olds is really it. And especially with a style that, shows that. Like currently I really like Owl House. I really like Owl House. That's airing. We've talked about it previously in our last video. But the tones are getting darker and they're being more serious about it. Now there's talks that Disney isn't going to renew it for a third season. So I'm like, wow, what do you know? Who would have thought that the Kids Network, with a show intended for kids, isn't getting the target audience? Which is bothering me, and I want to save Owl House. It's not what I'm saying here. I'm saying it's like you have the platform like Netflix. I think for the thing you could have done was go a little darker and go a little deeper. Kind of like they did with the He-Man show. Because have you seen any of the He-Man show?
No, not yet.
Okay, so something happens at the end of the first episode that I was really surprised by. But I can tell you right now, if they tried doing it for younger kids like they did She-Ra, they wouldn't have done it.
Wow.
That's all I'm gonna say is for that. And with that being said, though, I'm not saying the He-Man show is better. Then again, I'm an adult. You're an adult. Chances are people listening here are adults. And it's not that adults can't enjoy kids' media. It's just that I don't know. It bugs me. I guess I wish I had better words or a script to like better articulate my feelings of like, wow, you're going really dark and gritty. I would love for this to go more, but then in my head I'm like, oh, it's a kid show. They can't go that far.
Yeah. And like I think She-Ra could have existed as is as an adult show. We've seen it done before, like softer animation with darker themes. I can't think of an example right now, but I know I've watched some. Anime, I guess, is a good example.
Yeah, but anime's
Magica,
its
there we go.
anime's its own like ballpark. I really should. No, I don't
It
think we should.
is.
I don't think we should compare anime to that because, like, in the same vein, I think another reason why anime did like really well when we were younger too was again it was grittier shows. All right, so breaking news. My fan is on. It is actually the 15th at the time of us recording this because I don't know what we did. Quan, what do we do?
Breaking news.
So we finished the audio for this. I had the video done. The video was done and ready to go and upload on Wednesday like normal. And then Quan sent me this like tweet that was like, Michelle, what did we do? And I'm like, Quan, what are you talking about?
We did it. We summoned the She-Ra live action
by Amazon.
Amazon. It is a standalone, which means it won't be like Princesses of Powers, but they're still calling it the Princess of Power. Like,
I'm so confused here. So like, also from what I look, so if you listen to the Ramble Rant podcast, whatever we want to call this, I don't know. Before pretty much, we did talk about how we're like, oh yeah, if you want like a more adult show, make it a more adult show. I didn't mean like this!
We summoned it the wrong way!
Because they've announced they want it to be darker and grittier, and so I'm like, oh no, are we gonna... And because it's an Amazon, I don't know if they're gonna... Because there are good Amazon shows, but there's also a lot of sex in Amazon shows. Quite a lot. Like, I really like Carnival Row. There's a lot of sex in that show. Just a lot. And so, I'm so worried. So do you want to talk about your concerns for this now, to end it off?
I have so many concerns.
Yeah.
Because, like, I grew up watching, the original She-Ra.
Yeah.
And I think that's where they're gonna try and go with this one.
But how are you gonna do that and make it gritty?
I mean, I can kind of see how they do it, kind of like how they did the He-Man cartoon, just live action.
Oh, okay.
But I'm like, the gay, it's probably gonna be gone.
Well, that's what I was saying. I don't think they'll get rid of the gay, only because, like, Amazon's been pretty good about that. They have been really good. But the difference is I don't think they're gonna... we could totally be eating crow, but I don't think the cast is gonna be as diverse, both body type-wise and race-wise. They will have diverse cast, because, like I said, I like Carnival Row, I like other ones, but they will have diversity, but I just don't know if they're gonna do it right. Like, we don't know anything.
I don't think they will.
They just announced it, but they also didn't give us much more besides it's not connected to the Netflix show.
It's not. It's just called The Princess of Power, I think.
Yeah, and it's gonna be a standalone, and it's gonna be grittier. So I'm like, what are you gonna do then?
I don't know.
Because literally all I could think of would be like a prequel, but like at the same time...
No, because it's a standalone.
That's right, it's a standalone.
That's why I'm so confused. I'm like, okay, if it's a standalone...
Also, on a totally different platform. Like, I don't think people realize that this is gonna be on Amazon. Amazon is not affiliated with Netflix, because, like, Okay,
No.
I have Shudder because I'm a horror fan. And Shudder is affiliated with Amazon, so, like, there's stuff like that, but Amazon and Netflix are not affiliated in any way, shape, or form, from what I understand.
Mm-hmm.
But I also know there's been a lot of stuff recently where, like, I heard there's whispers that the Sabrina show might be coming back on another platform because Amazon canceled that, and I didn't like the last season of The Amazing Sabrina. It's not perfect, but at least it was, like, for me, that Sabrina was a guilty pleasure show. I acknowledged it wasn't good, but I'm just worried. I'm really worried, because I'm also here, like, why would you do a standalone that has nothing to do with the animated show? So then you can't have Catra, you can't have, like, any of the characters, right? Like, am I right? You can't have any of the characters.
Pretty sure it'll just be... That's why I think they're gonna get rid of the gay. Because, like, I don't think it's gonna have Catra or, like, any of them. I think it's just gonna be, like, She-Ra originally was in the old cartoon.
Okay, well, how was She-Ra in the old cartoon? Because I told you, I never watched the old one, so, like...
I mean, the old one is really dated, so...
Well, so was He-Man, but, like, what...
Yeah. Just a lot more, like... I don't know, like, how do I describe it? Like... Not gay.
So we do not have high hopes. We don't at all. I'm really nervous. I don't know what we did. I'm scared. And I'm also scared for the next thing we talk about. If it, like, does this again. But yeah, we felt like we had to, like, stop and edit and just add this in, that we now know this is a thing. Because it was announced after we recorded it, but not before it posted, and it didn't feel right just being like, well, we'll just post it anyway, because I feel like people will be like, did you hear it? Did you hear it? Did you hear it? So yeah. Anything you wanna end off? Or anything you're hopeful for they might do? If you wanna be hopeful?
I want titty bedsheet Shadow Weaver, thanks.
Titty bedsheet? What do you, what?
Let me show you.
Oh my god.
I'm gonna cosplay it too. It's better than I remembered.
Weren't we just talking about? Oh, that! Oh, okay.
Titty bedsheet Shadow Weaver.
The way you said that, I was like, I thought you want it to be not sexy, and then I... Oh,
no,
God.
I don't. There's nothing not sexy about that, Michi. I don't want it to be sexy. I want it to be fighty, gritty. I don't.
Which one is thing? I think they'll
sex
do
in my
too.
She-Ra.
I think they'll do that too. But at the same time, I don't know how I feel about, like, ooh rainbows and magical, because you can't have Princesses of Power and not have, like, the sparkle magic. Like, even if you make it gritty.
I'm, like, so confused.
That's what
like,
I'm confused.
Why are they?
Well, because, like,
why is that the affiliation right there? Like,
I've seen, like, people try to, like, grittyify stuff like that, and it looks whack. Like, it doesn't, like, make a lot of sense. You know what I mean? Like, again, I know I keep going back to Carnival Row, but it's, like, my closest thing, because it's a fantasy show, it's steampunky, but, like, everyone's kind of depressed in that show, because the world kind of sucks, you know, kind of like now.
Yeah.
So the color
the first couple episodes.
So the color palette is really muted. That's, like, the point.
Oh, but I like
it. No, I like it, too. That's what I'm saying. I like it. But I feel like you can't really have a magical girl show, which at the end of the day it is. I know earlier we were talking about how, like, you wanted to be serious, but it is a magical girl show. You can have seriousness and color. Again, look at Avatar. I know people hate that comparison, because I've seen a lot on TikTok, where people are like, you need to stop comparing stuff to Avatar. And I'm like, you're right.
Sorry.
We should. But they're the only thing that's done it right. Like, because either it's like, hoo hee hee, we're making fun of the fact that it's girly and sparkly,
yeah.
or it's girly and sparkly to be ironic. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not just like, okay, it's also here.
No, I get it. Because, like...
I'm hoping I'm making words sense, yeah.
I'm not sure if it was just, like, my perception growing up, but, like, She-Ra, I don't know. Like, I was like, yeah, girl power, like, growing up. And I know it's, like, really cheesy, and, like, they were trying to appeal to girls to, like, sell
the toys,
stuffed animals. But, like, as a kid, I really appreciated that because, you know, there wasn't a whole lot of it.
Well, that was why I really liked the original Thundercats, too, because, like, it was one of the few things where the female characters, did they have, you know, sexy outfits in Chitara, I'm probably terribly butchering her name, it's been so long. But, like, they had personalities and wants and powers, and there was more than one female. So, like, I also liked stuff like that, because a lot of... In the, like, late 90s, early 2000s, there were a lot of, like, girl power shows, but they were all the I'm not like other girls trope. They were like, you know, I'm one of the boys.
I'm tired of not like the other girl.
Oh, I am too. Because they also missed the mark on the I'm not like other girls thing, too. Like, they like, totally missed the mark.
Yeah, anyway,
Yeah, to where, like, instead of them just being like, okay, I just don't like girly things that much, it's like, me in a dress. Like, you know, like, they'd always over-exaggerate it, you know? Me in pink? Never. It's like...
Go live in a castle where a man takes care of me forever? No, I want to hunt in the forest.
Yeah. Honestly, we could probably do a whole one on the, like, not like other girls trope and the whole, like, insurgence of, like, pick-me's and stuff now. But, like, that's something, like, I didn't realize I knew pick-me's until, like, I saw, like, people describe a pick-me, and I'm like, oh my god, I knew so many people like that! Oh, and it was so cringy back then, we just didn't have a name for it. But no.
Oh my gosh, I'm looking at tweets right now. What are so hard.
What are tweets?
Okay, so...
Back to Shiro, sorry.
Yeah, did you watch Once Upon a Time?
Yes, I did. I didn't finish it, but I've seen, like, parts of it.
So you know Emma and Captain Hook?
Yep.
Someone put a picture of them and said, look! Dora and Seahawk confirmed.
You know what? That's a good way to end it. I think that's a good way to end it. That's so bad. God. Alright. Well, yeah, this is a disaster. Thanks for listening, guys! Hope you enjoyed. Sorry about the update, but felt like we had to add it. Alright, now, love you. Bye-bye.
Bye.